The preseason opener is only 3 days away as the Giants get set to go up to Buffalo to take on the powerful Buffalo Bills. What do we think we might see? What would you like to see? How prepared are the Giants to actually take the field in a game? Let's talk about it next on the Big Blue Breakdown live. Hello again, everybody. I'm Paul Dottino. So glad you could join us for another edition of the Big Blue Breakdown Live. We come your way every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Coming up a little bit later on in the show, we will have one of my broadcast partners on the Giants broadcast team, former Giants Super Bowl center Shaun O'Hara. And he has been at practice, as I have, during the course of the offseason and during training camp. We will get his thoughts specifically on the offense, the offensive line, the running backs, the quarterbacks, the receivers, the whole ball of wax. Obviously, also what kind of problems this defense could pose for an offense. He could tell you all about that, too. So Shaun O'Hara will be joining us later on in the program. We're going to be with you for at least an hour tonight. Perhaps we'll go longer. I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see how the program goes. We'll look for your chats on the side of the screen. Live chats, as always. You guys know I always hit those suckers up. And, of course, as you know, down below, you see the link right there. You can hit me up with a video call or an audio call, and we will be very, very glad to field your comments and your questions right here on the Big Blue Breakdown Live. We already have a comment, and this one's a good one because I met this gentleman today. He's one of the regulars on our program, James O'Keefe. Says, good to see you at practice today. Another long day for you. James, there's no such thing as a long day. When you're a football guy like I am, in fact, a football junkie like I am, it doesn't matter. From the time I get up in the morning, I can't wait to get out to the field. I can't wait to see practice, talk to the players, do the Big Blue Kickoff live show during the afternoon when I'm down at the facility. And then, of course, we do this program every Wednesday. Look, you guys know, and I was doing, when we first started this program, you guys know last summer, I was doing 2.5 hour, 3 hour shows. Look, I don't know what to tell you. I just got carried away. I just love what I do so much. I could talk Giants football 26 hours out of a 24-hour day. That's the problem. I have such a passion for what I do, I can't help myself. But we've decided here over the course of the last, since the hiatus for sure, over the summer, we're going to cut these things down. These are going to be 1 hour, maybe 90-minute shows. And that's it. I mean, doing these 2.5 hour, 3 hour marathons, it just didn't serve any purpose. So anyway, I do appreciate your loyalty, James. Thanks for shouting out hello. And it was good to see you. I hope you enjoyed yourself there today. Good news in that it did not rain. So you were actually able to enjoy a very nice summer day in Bergen County. Aiden Fink says, good evening, Paul. Absolutely love seeing you as the ring announcer on the Eli Manning Show. You killed it. Truly brought a smile on my face. Amazing stuff. For those of you who do not understand what Aiden is talking about, and, I'm just going to knock off a few of your chats while they're over there, and then we'll talk about practice today. The Eli Manning Show last week was the latest edition of the Eli Manning Show, and they posted it last week in advance of WWE Pro Wrestling's SummerSlam, which was Saturday and Sunday this past weekend at MetLife Stadium. Now, I don't pretend to know an awful lot about the current pro wrestling stars that are on the WWE roster. I'm more of a Bruno Sammartino guy. But, when it was the WWF, now it's the WWE. But anyway, to finish off the thought, so on the Eli Manning show, and Shaun O'Hara is, of course, his second banana on the program, a few weeks ago, they brought in Bianca Belair and the Profits. Bianca is a former women's champion in the WWE, and the Street Profits are a former tag team champion in the WWE. They were brought in to be interviewed by Shaun and by Eli. And then, as you know, every one of the Eli Manning shows, and again, these are available on Giants.com and also available on the Giants YouTube channel. And as you know, if you watch the show at all, you know, they have a lot of fun. They do a real interview, but then they also do some type of skit or competition that involves the guest, Eli and Shaun. So in this particular wrestling show that Aiden is referring to, they decided that the Street Profits and Bianca Belair would be the judges, kind of like Dancing with the Stars. They would be the judges and grade Eli Manning and Shaun O'Hara on a scale of 1 to 10 for their outfits, their trash talk, and their ring entrance, as if they were going to try out to be WWE superstars. Well, of course, if you're going to have a ring entrance, you have to have a ring announcer. And so I played the part of Howard Finkel, the legendary and I think WWE Hall of Fame ring announcer, in terms of introducing Eli the Eliminator Manning and Shaun Dre the Giant. We had a lot of fun with the satire and the parody. The Street Profits were really cool dudes, as was Bianca. So thank you to the WWE for participating in the Eli Manning show. And of course, Shaun and Eli were hysterical, as they usually are, if you're a regular to watch that program. So that's what Aiden is referring to. And, you know, I won't spoil it for you, but Shaun did his thing, Eli did his thing, and then the three judges honestly graded them 1 to 10. It was not a fix, okay? I know. That's funny, right? It's funny. It's a pro wrestling based show, and it was not a fix. I'm serious. It was not a fix. There was no decided outcome. And if you were to go to Giants.com, again, or the Giants YouTube channel, and wanted to go back and watch that Eli Manning show, you could. I will not spoil it for you and tell you how it turned out. But it was fun. It was enjoyable. Aiden, thank you so much for enjoying it and watching. You know, it's the second time now I've participated in an Eli Manning show. Who knows? Maybe there'll be another one down the line. I cannot say. All right. Let's see. Oh, Aiden says Paul talks Giants football in his sleep. That is very true. Hey, looks like we got ourselves a phone call. And it's Big Blue who wants to join us tonight. Hello, Big Blue. How are you? Uh-oh. Let's see here. We got an issue. We got an issue with your mic. Why don't we try it now, Big Blue? What do you got? Uh-oh. Try one more time. That is not working. That is not working at all. I don't know what's wrong with that, but our audio does not appear to be working. Big Blue, maybe if you try to call back in again and try it one more time, but at the moment, it's definitely not working out very well. Again, I'm not a real techie guy, but I do know how to bring the calls up on the program, and something was not right, obviously. All right, so anyway, well, he tries to get back in. Danny Dudd says, how is Daniel Jones stealing money from this team? He's not a Giant. He is an Indianapolis Colt right now understanding he's actually had a pretty darn good camp, too. Let's try Big Blue one more time. Big Blue, are you there? Let's see. Edit mic settings. And no. I do not have Big Blue there. I do not know why. All right. We will go back to potentially just taking chats then, unless maybe we can get them back. All right, let's see what else we have. Scott Young says, yeah, good evening. Look forward to every Wednesday. Interested to see what you have to say this evening about the Giants. I'll have a bunch to say. Let me get through some of these chats, and then we'll talk about it. Again, this was a regular, fully padded practice today. They'll have a carded practice tomorrow whereby they're just running through specific plays. There will be no 2-minute drill. There will be no red zone drill. There will be no full field drills where they want to drive all the way down the field. It'll just be a carded practice. Big Blue's trying to get in again. So, let's give him a shot. Big Blue, are you there? Oh my goodness. How about now? Still not happening. I don't know what to do about this. That's not happening. I apologize, Big Blue. You're gonna have to go to the chat. It's just not working tonight. I don't know why that is, and it's a shame because I'm always asking for audio and video calls, and for some reason we are having bad technical difficulties tonight. And what's really troubling me is that if that happens when Shaun O'Hara comes onto our program, we're going to wind up losing our guest, and that would not be very good. Yeah, Aiden Fink says he sounds like an angry chipmunk. I absolutely believe that is the case. That's what he sounded like. Pat Basin says, what's up, Paul? Let's see, love what you do. Keep up the coverage. I appreciate that. Pat Basin also says, do you think Darius Muasau has a shot to be the third inside linebacker? Who else is in that room? Board and Johnson. Well, those are the next likely candidates. See, Muasau is very athletic. He's very astute. And he's also very conscientious. He's very well liked. He's got a wonderful personality. They like him because he always seems to be in the right spot. Now, the two starting backers, as you know, on the inside are McFadden and Okereke. There's no doubt that Abdul Carter is also, he is also going to be playing some inside backer at times this year. So how much room does that leave for the third inside linebacker if there are no injuries? Not very much. I do think that Muasau has a leg up on the competition. And you are right. Board, who was signed as a special teams demon from the Baltimore Ravens, is a potential gentleman who could play some snaps at the inside backer spot. And Deontay Johnson, who was a free agent signee a couple of years back, hurt his knee, and now here he is making his comeback, and he is also trying to latch on potentially as another inside linebacker on the depth chart. I do think that Muasau has the lead on both of those players, and assuming that they keep three, I think it's a pretty likely scenario where Muasau is that third guy, unless he does something to lose the job over the course of the next several weeks. I don't think that's going to happen, quite frankly. I just don't. All right, let's see here. We have, Pat Basson says he's trolling at this point. I'm not sure exactly what that means. And Big Blue, Eli giving the business to the tiny lineman. I don't truly understand what that means either. But anyway, those were your comments, at least during the early portion of the show. Again, folks, coming up in about a half hour or so, Shaun O'Hara is expected to join us and talk about the Giants. Oh, here we are. What do we have here? Aiden Fink says he's talking about the Daniel Jones thing. Oh, whatever. Hey, look, I don't run from anybody's comments. Never have, never will. I'm a fan of Daniel Jones. I like him as a person. I think he has a lot of skills, enough of skills to be a winning quarterback in the NFL. I do. I feel that way, and I won't run from that. I have said for a while, I think he will get a change of scenery. I do think that he will win the Colts starting job in week 1, and I do think he's going to play well for them, and he will turn his career around. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to be an MVP candidate, nor does it mean he's going to win a Super Bowl. But I do think Daniel Jones will turn his career around. Okay. Scott Young. I know you want to get to today's activities, but what's your thoughts on Andrew Thomas playing game 1 this season? No, hey, that's fine. We can talk about that. Look, I'll get to today's practice notes. I have all my notes here, but that's fine. We can take your comments and questions until then. Andrew Thomas, in my opinion, from what I've been able to ascertain, he has been running on the side with the trainers. We've seen him do that during practice. It is my belief that they are being extra careful with him and holding him out for extra time simply because they are trying to make sure that once he gets back on the field, he'll be able to stay on the field. It's my impression from watching him run sprints that the foot appears to be either close to being healed or already healed. My guess from a logical perspective, and let me make this very, very clear, Scott, the Giants are not giving any details out on Thomas's foot. They are not giving any schedule out, and they are not giving out daily updates, despite the fact that people ask Coach Daboll about him all the time. It is my educated guess from seeing him out on the side of the practice field and from watching him do his sprints, it is my educated guess that he is either close to healed or healed, and that the reason they are holding him out is hoping that the extra time they keep him out will allow him to stay in the lineup once he comes back. I would think, logically speaking, the one fear that they have, and again, I'm speaking, this is not the Giants. I would suspect the one fear that they have is that he comes back and re-injures the foot or aggravates the foot and then is forced to sit out who knows how many weeks again. Now, look, I don't want to compare this to a piece of pottery or maybe a piece of ceramic that you might have at home. But you know when you put the special glue on it and it says, wait 3 hours until it dries? And what do? Especially if it was a valuable piece of something that, you know, your family or your other half really loved, and, you know, they're kind of peeved that it broke or that it cracked, and you're trying to fix it and make it all better. So what do? You put the glue on it, you repair it, and it says sit, wait 3 hours. And what do? You let the thing sit and cure overnight. You don't clock it. Oh, the instructions say 3 hours. So in hour number 4, I'm going to pick up that piece of pottery, or I'm going to pick up that dish, or I'm going to pick up that piece of china. No, at least not me. I'm telling you right now, When that's happened to me, I have allowed that repair, that glued repair, to go overnight. Forget about 2 to 3 hours to cure. That sucker is going to be glued and sitting there overnight before I even think about picking up that piece of repaired pottery or glassware, whatever it is. I think that's what's happening with Andrew Thomas. I think the Giants are waiting extra long. No matter how good he may look, no matter how good he may feel, I think they're waiting extra long because they want to be doubly and triply sure that when he gets back on the field, he's going to be able to stay on the field. All right. Let me see if we could try to get Alex up on the program. He is trying to call in with an audio call, and I would very much like to see if we can make this work. So, Alex, you're first on the show.
Hey, how's it going, Paul? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome.
And that is great. That is great. I'm so glad. Thank you for trying, and I'm glad you got through.
Awesome. Yeah, quick question. And thanks for doing this. I'm always I've been trying to get into the Big Blue Kickoff Live. It's always tough to get in on that one.
Well, during the daytime, and especially, we're live on YouTube during that show too, as well as Giants.com. Yeah. And so there just seems to be a glut as a lot of people try to get in. It's like a traffic jam sometimes.
Oh yeah. Thank you so much. One thing I've always wanted to ask you about this team in particular, really going back since, maybe 2013 when the real downward spiral started, the ability to run the ball, stop the run.
Yes.
I don't feel like we've been able to do it. And like when all these reports come out of camp that like Neighbors looks good or Carter looks great, if we can't run the ball and we can't stop the run, like if it's 3rd and 2 and I don't think we could stop Saquon, or it's 3rd and 2 the other way and I don't know if Tracy can get it, it's just hard to get excited. It feels like it always bites us, when we play the Cowboys, especially, they always get 3rd and short on us. Just wondering, I know it could be tough because they're going thud tempo. How do you think they're doing so far, stopping the run and establishing the run game so far this year?
Yeah, Alex, here's the problem. You're right. Right now, they're in shells, and then even when they are in pads, they do thud. And for those of you who don't understand what thud is, that means you make contact, but you don't actually throw guys down to the ground and follow through with the tackle. Coach Daboll thinks that that's the best way to go. They're trying to avoid injury. I understand, so it is what it is. Having said that, Alex, you're right. It's impossible to feel very confident about any grade you give them regarding the running game during training camp.
Yeah,
that's why the preseason games are so critical.
Yeah.
So I strongly invite you to watch every snap of the 3 preseason games to get a better gauge, because I'm going to be watching it with a microscope. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh yeah. And one last question while I got you. I feel like when we play the Cowboys, and the Eagles especially, I don't know if they're just scheming to take Dexter Lawrence out of the games. But
everybody tries to do that.
I know. But just speaking to the run defense, I feel like the year he had Leonard Williams, our run defense was a little bit more respectable, which makes
it was a lot better.
Yeah,
Leonard Williams, to me, I'm sorry, I understand that I think he's only made one All-Pro team or a Pro Bowl in his career, I think, and that was with the Jets.
Yeah,
I think he's a Pro Bowl caliber player. You guys know, if you followed me at all, I was jumping for joy when the Giants got him in that trade.
Yeah, I never would have sent him away. I mean, I understand. I guess they had to if they weren't going to pay him. But, man, it just feels like once we did that, our run defense never got back to where it was. And, like I said,
you're right.
You want to get hyped up for the Eagles games, and it's we're not going to stop Saquon on 3rd and 1.
You're absolutely right. And unfortunately, because of the money situation, because you knew Leonard Williams was going to get a huge contract when his deal was going to come up, they didn't want to trade him. This is where the salary cap helps to injure the league.
Yeah.
The salary cap does not allow teams, general managers and coaches, to maintain continuity. They coach players up, they create schemes, They build chemistry. They build unity. They try to get things together to where they can make themselves a better team. And then the salary cap says, guess what? We have to rip your team apart. I can't stand the salary cap. I'm very adamant about it. I've screamed from the top of Mount Everest. I can't stand the salary cap. But this is what we have to work with, and this is what happens. You have to rip your team apart. Now, in reference to your first question, though, I do want to say this. It is true that we can't get a confident grade on either the run game or the run defense right now because of the way practices are constructed. But I will say this to you. A couple of things. Number one, there is no doubt that Tyrone Tracy, in his second year in the Giants system as a running back, and you'll recall he was a converted wide receiver in college, ran at Purdue at the end of his college career, and then got drafted to the Giants as a running back. He is still rather young in his running back career. He looks much more assertive, much more confident when he hits the hole, when he cuts, with his vision. He's holding the ball much tighter, with that whole Tiki Barber high and tight thing. Oh, yeah. We're seeing him do that because I'll tell you something. That was a problem for him last year. We didn't really talk about it much because the Giants had so many other warts that were much worse. But Tyrone Tracy had trouble holding on to the ball last season.
It was all of them. I mean, do you remember that Singletary fumble against Washington?
He had one too. No question.
We had it. We had that one last time.
So Tracy does appear like he has fixed his technique in terms of holding the ball, and he's certainly running much more aggressively, much more angry, if you'd like to use that word, than he did last season. They're expecting very big things from him. And I think, to be frank with you, Singletary is what he is. He's just a good, solid, steady player. But adding Cam Scatterbo out of Arizona State was a big deal because he allows them to be deeper in that running back room with versatility and, of course, with the power to play goal line or short yardage where he can grind out yards down close.
Yeah, well,
that's a big deal.
I meant to ask because, he's a little bit thicker build than he was, and I hate to invoke, a great Giant. But, obviously with his build, his height, and the way he fights for yardage, it reminds you a little bit of Ahmad Bradshaw.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if he's been showing that. So, I don't even know if they can show it yet, right? Because they're still,
I know.
Yeah.
But if you watch the tape with the Sun Devils, he absolutely does have some of that Bradshaw stuff in him.
Oh, yeah.
He runs a lot more, believe it or not, like Brandon Jacobs.
Oh, okay.
Because he's not afraid to knock people on their butts, run them over, or run through them.
Nice.
And he does it with such authority. You see it on tape, especially when he gets close to the sticks or to the goal line. He's pretty ferocious. What people don't give him enough credit for is that he also is very patient. He sets up his blocks. He can make a quick cut and find an angle into the hole. He's not afraid, unlike many bruising runners who just want to run into contact and run people over, which Jacobs did a lot of that. But Jacobs also on occasion could run to daylight, and Scatterbo does have that in him. I just think he was an outstanding addition. You probably saw the video when they drafted him. I went bonkers doing the show.
No, you were hyped up, yeah. No,
well, because he, again, I do so much work. I cram like a demon from the time the season is over with the combine and the Senior Bowl and all that stuff, going all the way through the draft. I cram like a demon. And I put guys on my radar and say, I think this guy would be a perfect fit for the Giants roster, and I think this is the round of his value. Well, I wanted Scatterbo for the Giants. I made no bones, pulled no bones and punches about that. That's the guy I wanted them to get. I was hoping they could get him in the 4th round. They wound up getting him in the 3rd. That still made me extremely happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
So, yes, I'm a big believer in him. Now, I will say this. It's interesting, and I'm glad you brought up the running backs, because Are they going to keep 3 backs or 4? If they keep 3, well, then we know who the 3 are. If they keep 4, I've been saying now the whole offseason, I'm a big Dante Miller fan. I like Turbo Miller. He's got tremendous speed, and it looks like now that he's in his second year with the team, remember, he was a practice squad guy most of last season.
Oh, yeah.
He's better now in terms of reading blocks and reading the defense and being able to change direction. Yeah, last year he was basically a straight ahead runner.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember, with the run game, it's so different now, because like you talk about how Jacob, it was funny because Jacobs was the perimeter guy and Bradshaw was the between the guard and center guy. People didn't realize that if you weren't watching all the time. But Daboll's system and the modern system, really, it's so much shotgun running. That, I was worried if that would be good for Scatter, but you're saying he's doing fine with that, right?
From what we've seen,
gun running.
Yeah, now he's got a sore leg, and that's why again they're limiting him. I can't say for sure again because they're very sketchy with injury reports during training camp. In fact, they don't give them, to be frank with you.
Yeah.
But we do know that he's got a sore leg, and so he's on load management right now. So I don't expect to see him play against the Bills. But from what we have seen when he has been out there at practice, is that he is very aggressive to run it right up in there. Remember, this is a guy who, as a kid, was taking his brother's shoulder pads and running at the telephone poles.
Yeah, I know. It's a great story, ain't it?
Okay?
That's a good one.
So, somebody called us on Big Blue Kickoff the other day and said, you got it all wrong. He's not a power back. I'm like, okay, I tell you what. Why don't you go out there in front of him, pretend to be a telephone pole, and tell me after he rams into you that he's not a power back?
I mean, just watch the bowl game he was in last year. I mean, he took that game over against really a better unit than what he was playing on.
Yes. So, again, he's underrated in terms of his ability to find space, and he certainly can catch the ball. He's really good catching the ball out of the backfield. But bottom line, the running back room appears to be in much better shape than it's been in a couple of years for sure. I mean, there's certainly more depth than they've had in a while, and I think the guys that are there are all capable of doing some pretty good things. So I'm optimistic that the first part of your question is that they'll be able to get 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 2s, and that they will be able to run the ball effectively, even when people know they're going to try to run it. I always say, and you know this, if you've watched me, I talk about having a functional running game. I tell people all the time, the best thing that you could do with your running game is situationally, when you need to run the ball and everybody knows you're going to do it, you can still get it done. It'd be great if you could run for 130 yards a week as a team. That to me is the goal. You want to be about 130 a game. That means really good things if you could do it. But if you run for 120 a game, it's okay, provided you run the ball when you need to, inside the red zone. 4-minute offense in the fourth quarter when you're trying to wear people down and hold on to the lead. You follow what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I mean, and with the 2022 Giants, I thought they were the best 4-minute red zone team or the 4-minute team in the league.
They were very good at it.
You'd have Jones and Saquon, and teams couldn't, their tired defenses couldn't tackle either of them late in the games. It was great.
They were very good at it, but as you just said, only one of them was a running back. The other guy was a quarterback.
Yeah, not good.
I personally have a problem with that. I would never want my quarterback to be my leading rusher for the season.
No.
1,000-yard rushing quarterbacks, I'm allergic to those guys.
Yeah.
That's a bad recipe for me.
Well, normally those guys, I mean, even Lamar, who's wonderful, you get to January, he's run down. He's a different guy. People wonder why
he's run down, and then you're letting defenses take too many shots at your QB, and you always got to worry about injuries. To me, it's just a very dangerous way to live. If I'm a coordinator or a head coach, I've said this before, I would try very hard to be conscious about not having my quarterback run at most 4 times a game. At most.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you. You don't want him to get hurt. But I don't want to hijack your Paul. Thank you so much. You gave me so much time, and thank you so much
You're
for
very
answering all my
welcome,
questions.
Alex, and thank you so much for calling. Please enjoy the program.
Oh, I will, and I'll be watching tomorrow on Big Blue Kickoff. Thank you, Paul.
All
Thank
right,
you.
be good now. Great stuff from Alex. Very much enjoyed having him on the show. There we go. We got myself centered again. All right, let's see what we have over here. Let's go over to our chats again. If you guys have questions, we'll get to the practice notes in a minute because, quite frankly, what was the most important thing that happened at practice today? James Hudson, the third tackle. I might as well just get this out of the way. He got nicked up early in the practice, and so Marcus Bowe, the 5th round draft pick, the rookie out of Purdue, got a ton of practice reps today, specifically with the first team while playing tackle. Wow. And he did okay, by the way. He did okay. So that was the most interesting development at practice today. There were some big plays that we'll talk about if we have some time. But in terms of news value of what happened at practice, that was the most news valued item. The fact that Hudson did have to miss the latter stages of the session. All right, let's see what else we have here. Matt Seepersad says, I already told my boys he's going to make a Pro Bowl there. I take it he's talking about the Colts and Daniel Jones. I don't even know if he's going to go Pro Bowl, but again, I do think he'll resuscitate his career. Yes, and he is talking about Daniel Jones. Matt sends another message to the chat that says he was talking about Daniel Jones. Mikey C says DJ could be the next Sam Darnold and Baker. He got a bad ride with the G-men. Again, I'm not going to argue with that. Those are two great examples of guys who were able to resuscitate themselves. I also would put Geno Smith in that category. I never thought very much of him at all. Goes to Seattle. Pete Carroll believes in him, sets up the offense for him, and all of a sudden things click, and Geno Smith winds up having a couple of really good seasons. And now he's back with Pete Carroll with the Raiders. And I'm sure that marriage is going to continue to produce results. Big Blue did want to get in on an audio call, but we had problems hearing him. So instead he goes to the tiny lineman was giving Eli the business to O'Hara on their wrestling get-together. The live chat link not working. That's correct. I'm not sure about you. Oh, the tiny lineman. I'm not sure who that was. But anyway, okay. Anyway, Big Blue says, does Dante Miller make the team, and do the starters play the first half against Buffalo? Let's take this in reverse order. Brian Daboll is adamant about not telling anybody how many snaps his players are going to get during the preseason, and specifically during week 1. He simply says, we haven't talked about it. The staff will discuss it later in the week, and they'll figure out what they're going to do, and everybody does have a plan. But he's not telling anybody. So, no, I have no answer for that question. Does Dante Miller make the team? If they keep 4 running backs, I think he absolutely does. If they keep only 3 because they decide they want an extra lineman, or if they want an extra tight end, or they want an extra wide receiver, I mean, that's going to knock Dante Miller off the team and send him back to the practice squad. I like Dante Miller. I think there's a place for him in this league on somebody's 53. If it's not the Giants, I hope Dante Miller gets through waivers and goes to the practice squad. I really do. Because I don't want to lose him. We're just simply going to have to see. Injuries are going to play a factor here. I mean, let's just say for argument's sake, and I don't think this is going to be the case, but what if they have to keep an extra lineman because Andrew Thomas, Andrew Jones played baseball for the Braves and the Yankees. If Andrew Thomas was unavailable, all of a sudden now you got to make sure you keep an extra tackle. So if you got to keep an extra position player at a different position, you're going to have to steal it from one of the other rooms. Remember, if you only keep 3 active running backs on a 53, you're certainly going to have somebody on the practice squad, because if somebody does go down, you're going to want to be able to elevate the practice squad guy. So being on the practice squad is not a bad thing. I think you guys have already figured that out. Being on the practice squad is still a very good thing. Isaac Moore says, why are we still talking about Daniel Jones? People seem to want to continue to bring him up. I don't know what else to tell you, Isaac. Mark B., who chimes in, one of our regulars. Big Cat and Big Dex were a damn good tandem. I wish we still had best friends on and off the field. You're right. You're absolutely right. Those guys were tied together at the hip, and they were terrific on the field together. I knew it was going to work out. The minute I heard about that trade and the Giants were getting him from the Jets, I praised it from the high heavens. And for some reason, there were a whole lot of people who didn't like it. Well, Leonard Williams is a very good defensive lineman. End of story. You can get a bunch of Leonard Williams on your team, that kind of quality of pro football on your squad, you should be darn happy 7 days out of 7 days. All right, M. Burnett says, hello, will the Giants use VR training, that's the video, the virtual stuff, to help their young quarterback get up to speed, just like Washington did with Jaden Daniels? Well, to my knowledge, M. Burnett, that has not happened yet. But I'll tell you what, we can re-ask that question to my broadcast partner on Saturday's game on the radio as the Giants take on the Buffalo Bills in their preseason opener. Super Bowl center Shaun O'Hara joins us on the program tonight. Shaun, great to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Paulie Dots, how we doing?
Hey, great day, Shaun. How'd the practice go? I know your son's playing ball.
Yeah, well, the Franklin Lakes War Eagles, 5th and 6th grade team, had a stellar practice tonight.
Nice.
We've cut down on the mental errors, which is good. Look, it's funny because youth football emulates. I feel like football always goes from the top down. So youth football, we're still in the acclimatization period. So no pads yet. We got 3 days of just helmets. Even at the youth level now, we're talking about load management. So, we had 3 practices. Tomorrow night is the first night in pads. So it's been a lot of mental reps, a lot of learning, a lot of technique. Obviously, anytime you're coaching a youth sport, safety is paramount. So
no doubt,
we've spent a lot of time on heads-up tackling. But I have been using some of the Giants' slogans on defense. Bite the ball is something I talked about a lot tonight as we talked about form tackling. So it's definitely a trickle-down effect, but we're having a great time.
All right, Shaun. Well, let me just work off of this question that M. Burnett just talked about. He wanted to know about the Giants using that virtual reality pair of glasses that some teams, including Washington, is used with Jaden Daniels. I don't have any direct knowledge of the Giants using that very often. I think they may have sampled it at one point, but I don't think they're using it much, if at all. Do you have any knowledge of that? And even aside from the virtual reality thing, it's probably a good time to ask you your impression of the quarterback room as well.
Yeah. Listen, look, we're in a virtual world now. I feel like this really started to take off during COVID, because practice time was limited. And I think there was a lot of companies that were out there that were sending out protocols for NFL teams to try them out. And I know there was a lot of players that kind of incorporated that into some of their offseason program, especially if it was a new player, a younger player, or a player that was going to a new team. And what they could do was they could program some of the plays into the virtual reality. And so they would say, all right, this is 3 jet X shallow Y cross. And that would be the play, and you would see it in your goggles. So you would get the quarterback progression. And I really feel like that was kind of where it was originally conceptualized for, was the quarterbacks. So they could have that vision. And really, when you're playing quarterback, it's all about training your eyes, right? So you're reading the defense pre-snap and then basically going from progression through your first, second, third receiver. in the virtual world, it's the same. It's just like you're doing it in real life, and it's training your eyes to go from one receiver to the next and then making that throw. So I've definitely heard of quarterbacks doing it. It's definitely kind of a new school kind of tool. I don't think a lot of the older quarterbacks have embraced it quite as much. I think the Giants did try it a year or two ago. I remember hearing some of the coaches talk about it, and they were using it in the spring. I don't know if it's something that guys use during the season, but I definitely think that nowadays, there really is only one practice a day. So look, you look out at the practice. If there's 4 quarterbacks, if there's 75 plays in a practice, and you're chopping those up amongst 4 guys, there just aren't enough reps to go around for all the guys. So if this is a way for them to get mental reps, I think it can definitely help speed up that progression, and also the defensive recognition. So a lot of it can be, hey, you know what? We're going to show up a couple different coverages, and you've got to decipher. You see 2 seconds of the defense, and you got to figure out, is it cover 2? Is it cover 3? Is it man? And I think that they've used that for some kind of processing practice as a quarterback. The second part of your question was the quarterback play at Giants training camp thus far. I've always felt like it's very hard to gauge, hey, who's doing great throughout training camp from day to day based on what we just talked about. If you have 4 quarterbacks and you're trying to give everybody reps, one day, Russell Wilson might get all of the reps with the ones. The next day, he's sharing them with Jameis. The next day, he's sharing them with Jackson Dart.
Right.
So when you're looking at, all right, Russell Wilson is with the first team offensive line, there's probably going to be a lot less mental errors with the first group and less breakdowns as opposed to the second and third group. So there's that variable that you have to account for. And then also, you look at the plays, a lot of those quarterbacks may not get to run the same play more than once in a 2 or 3 day span. So you don't know what plays they're getting. They could have 6 reps and 4 of them are run plays, 2 of them are pass plays. So, I always get a little bit hesitant when I'm trying to compare, because it's not always apples to apples.
Right.
But I will say, on a macro level, Paul, there have been a number of times where I'm watching practice that I say, wow, the ball's coming out quick. Like the ball is out, and there are a lot of really good throws. And this is from all the quarterbacks. Russell has made some spectacular throws. I feel like Jameis has been very efficient with his play time and with his reps. And even Jackson Dart has looked really accurate at times. And I think that's something that is great for your team, because number one, your offense looks crisp, but number two, your defense is getting a really good look. And I think that's what we've seen, some really good competition on both sides of the ball, but the defense is getting great opportunities at trying to defend some of these deep balls and some of these good throws. So you're sharpening the other side of the ball when you have really good quarterback play in practice. I don't want to leave Tommy DeVito out, because I will say this. This is the best that I think I've seen Tommy DeVito play.
I agree with you.
And he's been accurate. He looks controlled. It looks like things have really slowed down for him. He's very composed. He sometimes has had to deal with the fact that he's running with the third team wide receivers. There's been times where he's had to burn a couple of balls because the receiver ran a wrong route or they weren't on the same page. So there's those wrinkles you have to deal with. But I've been very impressed with the level of quarterback play on a whole. To speak to Russell Wilson, I've been so impressed with how much of a leader he has become in such a short amount of time on this offense. Look, he's had to come in behind the 8 ball, learn the offense, kind of play catch up. He's got an unbelievable amount of reps under his belt, and you can see the leadership aspect that he brings to the table and how he's talking to guys after plays. Here's how I see it. Here's what you're seeing. Here's where I need you to be. And I think that's all positive. I think it's all been really good. But on a whole, I feel like the Giants offense looks like it's light years ahead of where it was at this time last year.
Well, Shaun, that leads to that second question, or second part of the question, and that is, you have the 4 quarterbacks. DeVito's the only guy who's been in this system. And even though Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson are longtime veterans, how many reps do you think they're going to need during the preseason to really feel comfortable with their teammates, with the system, with gameplay? Brian Daboll came right out and said the other day, and he's not going to tell us how many reps everybody's going to get. He's not doing it. But he did say that he admits game reps, there's no substitute for them. And it definitely helps guys to get better. So again, I've come out and said, philosophically speaking, I'd always like to see my veteran starters get some preseason reps. You played in this game for a long time. There are pros and cons to it. There's always the injury factor. Can you understand the need, though, for some of these guys? Russell Wilson said today he thinks preseason reps are valuable. He wants to play.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with him. And I think that especially as a quarterback that is trying to get his timing down, look, the receivers on game day, they run faster and things happen quicker. So absolutely, the game speed is necessary. And look, I even felt like, even later on in my career, I liked the preseason games. I liked getting out there and kind of knocking the rust off and kind of getting a chance to get that game action again. So I would never want to go into a week one regular season game having not played in the preseason game. So I think that we will see, Russell and Jameis in the first game, probably not a whole lot. But I think the way that a lot of teams are looking at it now is the first two preseason games, you play a lot of the guys. The third preseason game, probably not going to play a whole lot. The Giants also have 2 joint practices with the Jets before that Jets preseason game. So the joint practices, I feel like, are great for teams because you're going live, but the quarterback's not live. So you can throw quarterbacks out there and really put them under duress, and you're not going to get them killed in a joint practice. So those are really good opportunities to kind of build your offense and build that chemistry. But I think for Russell, he's never shied away from work. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, they all took reps in the preseason. Eli always took reps. I think it's important. And I also think it's important from a leadership standpoint to go out there and be with your guys and, to go out there and do it. You kind of look back, and I hate to bring this up for any Jets fans that may be listening to this as well, but, Aaron Rodgers didn't take any snaps in preseason a couple of years ago. Right. And his first live snap was that Monday Night Football game. And we all know what happened 4 snaps in. So I think you kind of look at that, and it's, I think that you can send your guys out there, especially in the preseason. You're not going to put them in a 7-step drop scenario where they're at risk. You could let them get out there, let them kind of get the flow, let them get the feel of the game speed again, get a little bit of chemistry going on, and then get them out.
How much do you think Dart might play during this preseason, since we all know once the season starts, Wilson's going to be the 1, Winston's going to be the 2. They'll be the guys who get 95% of the reps during the course of the season. So it seems to me, Shaun, if Dart doesn't get some bite of the apple in preseason, you may not be able to get a whole lot of work for him during the next months.
Yeah, I would expect Jackson Dart to get a lot of reps. And you know what? I think he wants them. I think he's probably begging for them. I think it's actually more important for Jackson Dart to get reps than even Jameis Winston at this point. Jameis is a true pro. He's continued to elevate his game every single year. He's constantly improving on stuff. But, Jackson Dart is the one guy that the more reps he gets, the better he gets and the more confidence he has. So, I think if you were comparing him and Jameis Winston, I would feel like Jackson Dart should get more reps because he needs more reps and he needs that time. And you're not going to be able, you're not planning on seeing Jackson Dart in the regular season. So get him as many reps as you can now, so that he's battle tested if you do have to call on him at some point down the road.
All right, let's go to your specialty, the offensive line. The big story, besides the fact that Andrew Thomas is working with the trainers, and there's a lot of hope that he'll be ready for week 1. But the real big story is obviously Evan Neal's conversion to guard. You've been out at practice at camp, as have I. So far, again, it's very limited in terms of what we can put a grade on and what we can chew. But it looks like Evan Neal has a chance to make this work.
I think he does. He's got a great opportunity. And, look, he's a good kid. He's always been a hard worker. He's had some bad luck with some injuries that have set him back in the past. But, we have seen guys move inside from tackle to guard and have exceptional seasons and find kind of a way to resuscitate their careers. Mekhi Becton did it last year in Philadelphia. And I think that's kind of what they're hoping. Watching Evan Neal, look, everybody, I think he has to feel all the eyeballs are on him every time he goes in there with the ones, and every one-on-one that he does, everybody's scrutinizing everything he does. I'll tell you what, I think Evan Neal has done a really good job in camp so far. He, at guard, look, there's still some things that he's working through, but he is finally able to use the mass and the size and the power that he has at guard that he never really seemed to be able to transfer onto the field at tackle. And I think at tackle, you're in so much space that you're dealing with much more athletic guys that are moving around. The target is moving a lot quicker. When you move inside, the target's kind of right in front of you. And I think that's really helped him, and that's kind of been his forte. He's a powerful dude. And I think when he figures out that he is stronger than he thinks he is, or than he knows he is, and when he figures out how to use those hands and lock people out, I think he could be a really good player at guard. He's kind of learning that, look, the guys inside are a little bit bigger, so you've got to get low. He's a big, tall guy, so that's going to be to his disadvantage sometimes inside. But he's looked really good in pass pro. I think he looks more comfortable. His hands, look, when he punches guys, I mean, he's got really strong hands. So that's the key. His technique definitely looks better. He looks more comfortable. I'd like to see him fire out even more in the run game because he is so massive. And look, when you get him on the tracks and you want to run the football behind him, if you just let him mow people down, right in front of him, he's a road grader. So I think that's where they got to play to his strengths. But I think Evan has done a good job in camp. Now it's can he transfer that into the games? Because there are a lot of guys that can handle things in practice, and then when it comes to the game time, they're flopping all over the field, and that's what he can't do. So, I think he's headed in the right direction. He's definitely trending up. But the offensive line, as you mentioned in the beginning, I think Andrew Thomas might be the most important offensive player on this team, and I think because what he brings to that left tackle position. How good of a player he is. That's a huge blow if he's not ready to go. They're hoping that he'll be ready week 1. But I will say this is the best backup left tackle player that we've had in a long time in James Hudson. Yeah, I think what he has done filling in at left tackle, and it's been really good for him because he has seized the opportunity at taking all these reps at left tackle now with the first team. And he is unbelievably athletic. He's almost so athletic that he gets away with things that other tackles, technique-wise, would never be able to get away with because his feet are just so clean and he's so athletic. He's so nimble. So that's been really good to watch. I tell you,
he's feisty too, Shaun. He's very feisty.
He's got a little vinegar in him. Yeah, he's not backing down from anybody. So you kind of like to see. I think every old lineman has a little bit of dirtbag in him. So you like to see guys that have a little bit of that. And he's got a little edge to him. So, look, he started 17 games for the Cleveland Browns. I think 14 at right tackle and 3 at left tackle. So he's got some he's got some game reps and some experience there. I think he's done a really good job. I think Illuminor on the right side has looked really good, really solid. But if Andrew Thomas comes back and he's healthy and he's ready to go, the Giants are in a position that they really have not been in years, that they have a quality swing tackle that in a pinch, in case of emergency, if he has to come in at left or right tackle, they've got a guy that can do it.
I'm going to go back to the question about snaps if I can, Shaun, because we were kind of talking about it in terms of quarterbacks, but it seems to me, and you know this better than anybody, I don't even have to ask the question, the chemistry of an offensive line is so paramount. Don't the starters on that offensive line need some preseason snaps even more than the quarterbacks do?
Yeah, I think it's always helpful. And look, for John Michael Schmitz, he's still, kind of a young player. He's looked really good in training camp, but, he may have a new right guard in Evan Neal. So those combo blocks, it takes time to make sure that you're not stepping on each other's feet and making sure you're cheek to cheek and that you're getting all the right angles and all the right communications, all the right calls. John Runyon and at left guard, they've got some chemistry there. But look, Runyon hasn't worked a lot with Hudson. So those two guys need work together at left guard and left tackle in the combo blocks and just kind of passing off twists. And then Evan Neal and Jermaine Illuminor, they need that chemistry as well. The chemistry in the offensive line is very simple. You can't microwave it. You can't throw it in the microwave and heat it up in 60 seconds. I'm talking slow cooker. This has got to be on the grill like a big old piece of brisket. All right, you got to put it on the smoker, put it on the Traeger, and cook it at 180 degrees for 8 hours. You put it in the microwave, it gets rubbery, and it's going to taste like crap. So O-linemen are the same way, like a big old piece of brisket. They got to be slow cooked if you want it to taste right.
Can I keep you a few more minutes, Shaun? I know I'm intruding on your
let's
evening.
do it.
All right, let me ask you about the defense for a few minutes here, because we heard so many people say, well, you can't take Abdul Carter because now you got 3 edge rushers. How are you going to get them all on the field? We both know that's a ridiculous thought, and we have seen Carter line up everywhere on this defense. Well, he hasn't been in the secondary, but you know what I mean, during the course of training camp. And Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator, has been very open about saying, hey, we're going to get all 3 on the field in a number of packages on all different downs.
Yeah, and look, he's holding true to that. And, when Abdul Carter comes in, he literally is a threat to get to the quarterback, whether he's lined up against the tackle. We've seen him move inside against the guard, and we've seen him, make guards miss. We've got a couple of whiff blocks on him. He's got a great spin move. We've even seen him over the center causing havoc. So, look, I look back to when we drafted Justin Tuck years ago, and everybody said the same thing. Why are you drafting a defensive end? And he was the best player on the board. And we had Strahan and Osi. And, Tuck came in and he said, look, if I'm going to get on the field, I got to move inside. Well, Justin Tuck was so shifty and so quick that he was really hard to handle for guards who were used to blocking 330-pound guys who just, were a one-gap guy. So when you have a jump around guy like that, can go from A gap to B gap or A gap to opposite A gap, it really, stresses the offensive line and pass protections. But Abdul Carter, I've been extremely impressed with his natural bendability. And watching film on him at Penn State, you watch him as a stand-up linebacker and the athleticism just, drips off the screen. You watch him with his hand in the dirt and you say, man, this guy is he's just a force off the edge. He's got a great ability to kind of run that rim, run that circle. And then you see him in person, and he's more powerful in person than you even thought he was.
Yeah.
He accelerates through the rush. A lot of guys, as they're rushing, their feet kind of slow down, and the closer they get to the quarterback, the slower they are because they're getting blocked. He accelerates through, finishing as he's rushing, and then finishing through the quarterbacks on the sack. So that's been really impressive to watch. I think he's done a great job with, all of the things that they've thrown at him, because they are asking him to do a lot. He's playing defensive end. Sometimes he's playing stand-up Sam or Will linebacker. And he seems to have handled all of those concepts rather easily. But he's an impressive player. And when you have a guy like that as a coach, it's your job just to not mess him up. Like, just let him go out there, let him do his thing. Like, don't overcoach him. It's like a good hunting dog. You get a good hunting dog, they just know what to do. You don't have to teach them a damn thing.
The problem, though, Shaun, and we both know this too, you got to get to those passing situations to let that pass rush cook. And on first and second down, the Giants have had trouble defending the rush over the last couple of years. They've added guys like Robertson Harris up front. They've added Chauncey Golston, who's more of a pass rusher, but he's another guy up front. How do you see Darius Alexander, right, was also drafted, important third-round draft pick. How do you see that part of this defense improving? Because to this point, again, without the real tackling in practice, it's kind of hard for us to judge. It's all projection right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, I think you look at that defensive line room. I mean, you've got Nacho in there, Nunes Roches. He's another really athletic, really stout defensive tackle. Elijah Chapman kind of burst on the scene last year as a rookie. He's got some spunk to him. So this defensive line room is loaded. They've got some size, obviously with Dexter in there, and they've got some athleticism. So that's paramount. I know Shane Bowen is really focused on that. They've got to do better against the run. It's not just the front seven. It's not, it's the safeties have to insert as well. The corners have to do their job as well. But no doubt, stopping the run starts with, stopping the line of scrimmage. I think, the defense has looked good in that capacity, but, look, practice is one thing. It's different. You're not tackling. Guys are thudding up, they're tagging off. But, I think that's where the preseason games really that's where you've got to get out there and you've got to really tackle. I feel like because we've lost a preseason game now, they only do 3. Sometimes guys don't play a whole lot in those 3 preseason games. You see the tackling is an issue in weeks 1 and 2 of the regular season, because guys haven't done it. And I think that's always the challenge as a coach is, I've got to teach these guys to tackle and they've got to get better at it, but we just don't get a lot of reps at live tackling. So that's definitely TBD as a defensive whole. But I will say that, Javon Holland has been really active. The new safety that they acquired from the Dolphins. Tyler Nubin has been very physical. So is Drew Phillips. Adebo, the corner that they signed from the Saints, he's very physical. And I've been very impressed with him coming up and run support, how eager he is to get involved. A lot of times corners don't really want to participate in that capacity, but he's been very eager to get involved with that. So, I know it's a point of emphasis. And really, Paul, you go back to even training camp last week, the first couple of days of pads, it was a very run-heavy focus for both sides of the ball.
Right.
It was, look, the offensive line needed work on the run game, and the defense was getting some work in that as well. I thought the offense was actually ahead of the defense when the first couple of days of pads. They gashed them a couple times. I think since then the table has turned, and now I feel like the defense has definitely been stronger in defending the run. There's been a lot more tackles for losses in practice, a lot more penetration. So I think the defense is figuring things out as well.
I'm going to squeeze one more in here with you, Shaun, and I'm going to go back to the run game, but on the offensive side of the ball as I flip the coin back the other way with Singletary, with Scatterbo, with Tracy. The Giants now have 3 guys I think they feel really good about in terms of being able to run any kind of play out of the backfield. You had Bradshaw and you had Jacobs. You had Ward back there for a while too. Reuben Jones was even there for a little while. It means a whole lot to an offense to be able to have that balance, to be able to have that threat of a run game. It makes everybody's job easier. And I just wonder what you think the impact of having this improved running back room will have on this offense in general.
Yeah, look, I think Tyrone Tracy burst onto the scene last year, and he looks really good. He's got really good vision. He's got a great burst. I'm looking forward to big things from him. Devin Singletary, he just keeps chugging away, right? Motor is a good nickname for him because he just keeps churning out yards. With Eric Gray, with his situation, it's really opened up for both Turbo, Dante Miller, and for Scatterbo to get a lot more reps. Of course, Scatterbo is kind of nursing the hammy, so we probably won't see him for a few more days, and rightfully so. But I think, look, that running back by committee, I have no issue with that whatsoever. You mentioned the Earth, Wind, and Fire group that we have with Bradshaw, Jacobs, and Ward. There is no Brandon Jacobs on this team. Like, he was kind of a unicorn with how big he was and how crazy he was. But really what it comes down to is, are you willing to commit to the run?
Yeah. Because
if you're going to run the ball 15 times a game, I don't care if you have 5 great running backs, that's not enough carries. So, what they have to do is you've got to be efficient on first and second down if you want to continue to run the football. If it's, if you're losing the yard on first down, or if it's 2nd and 9, 3rd and 8, you're losing opportunities to run the football and to stay committed to the run as a play caller. So That first down efficiency and second down efficiency is paramount. But I really like what I've seen so far in training camp. The run game, you don't see, these are not dancers. These guys, you're not seeing, they're not dancing behind the line of scrimmage. They're not, trying to cut back. These guys are downhill runners. They're one-cut runners. I've been very impressed with Scadaboo's vision as a rookie. A lot of times you see guys kind of hesitating. They're kind of tap dancing before they hit the hole. Scadaboo, he's got some really good vision. He is patient enough to set up the blocks, which you don't see a lot of young running backs have at this point in time in their career. So that has been very encouraging. I think the running back room is pretty solid. Now they just got to give them a chance.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to let you go, Shaun, because you've been very generous with your time tonight. I do appreciate it. Folks, Shaundre the Giant can be seen on the Eli Manning Show, which is currently on Giants.com. It was.
Don't watch it. Don't watch it. You know what? I take that back. Watch it because Paul Dottino is a man of many talents. And he might be a buffer boy. He might be Michael or Bruce Buffer's long-lost brother. I thought you nailed it on the intros and all that. So kudos to you. Hats off to you, Paulie, for stepping in and being the ring announcer. And I tell you what, I don't know how you kept a straight face with those outfits they had us in.
You know what, though? I'll tell you, I wish that we had you and Eli mic'd up a little more often on the field because you guys did the trash talk really, really well.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody liked to hear the things that we were saying to each other and to the other guys in the huddle. There was definitely a lot of four-letter words. But yeah, we're having a lot of fun doing all that. And speaking of fun, I'm looking forward to calling this game here with you on Saturday. Giants-Bills. Looking forward to it, buddy.
It's going to be a blast. 1 o'clock kickoff on Saturday on WNBC Channel 4 TV in New York locally. NFL Network will have the national TV cast. Shaun and I will be on the radio side on WFAN 101.9. Giants and Bills preseason opener Saturday, 1 p.m. kickoff. Shaun, enjoy the rest of your night. You can always catch Shaun also on all the Giants.com platforms, again, with the Eli Manning Show and all of the other Giants programming that we do down there at the facility. It is always good to see him. And Shaun, again, I appreciate your time so much tonight.
All right. Thanks, Dots. Appreciate it, man. See you soon.
All right. You got it. Shaun O'Hara joining us on tonight's program here on the Big Blue Breakdown Live. Very grateful for his participation in discussing Giants training camp and what the Giants appear to have going into their preseason opener against Buffalo. Let's get back to some of your chats because as much as I'd like to get to some of the plays that we just saw today, I think I got to answer some of your chats because you guys have been so good in terms of waiting your turn as we discuss things with Shaun. Let's see, what do we have here? We have, I left off with Kyler. What happens if Dart plays so well in the preseason? Thinks Dabes gives him the nod since he's in love with Dart. People forget Russell Wilson wasn't supposed to start his rookie year. Well, here's the thing, Kyler. When Russell Wilson was a rookie in Seattle, Matt Flynn was signed off of one terrific game at the end of the previous season to a sweet free agent contract in Seattle. It turned out that one game was really a flash in the pan that caused Seattle to overpay for a guy who was really nothing more than a journeyman. That's not the case with Russell Wilson. He's a 10-time Pro Bowl player, been in the league for 14 years, gone to 2 Super Bowls, won a Super Bowl. I don't think, you can compare the two situations at all. And in truth, Russell Wilson has had a terrific offseason for the Giants. It looks like he's got a lot of gas still left in his tank. He throws the ball consistently, accurately. And, while Jackson Dart is giving a lot of people some hope and some positivity and a lot of optimism because he has had a very nice rookie offseason, there's just no way, in my opinion, that not only is that not going to happen, as Shaun O'Hara said himself, and I agree, Jackson Dart should be redshirted his rookie season. It's going to take a very unique set of circumstances, in my opinion, for Dart to get on the field as a rookie in 2025. But I've been consistent in saying that all along, and I'm not changing my opinion. Now, Pat Basson says, is Micah McFadden going to play the lowest snap percentage of his career thus far? He has continuously improved with every week and every game that he's played with the Giants, to the point where he had over 100 tackles last season. But Pat, you're right. In my opinion, because of the addition of Abdul Carter, if he's on the field in a 3-edge rusher set, he's not going to take snaps away from Bobby Okereke. So who's the likely guy that loses the snaps? Probably Micah McFadden. So I don't disagree with your thought. I think and it's no fault of his, but if you want to get creative with Abdul Carter and you want to maximize his possible production, somebody's going to have to yield those snaps. And I do think that McFadden will be that guy. Now, I also believe you'll see some packages where the Giants only put 2 down linemen on the ground, and then others where you might see 1 down lineman on the ground, and then the other edge rushers all standing up in various spots, kind of like the old amoeba defense that the Baltimore Ravens used to play a lot when Rex Ryan was their defensive coordinator. You'll probably see some of that stuff too. And so is it possible there's a package or two that has Okereke, McFadden, Thibodeau, and Burns and Carter all on the field? Yeah, I think there's a chance you might see some snaps like that, because if the Giants are really going to get as creative as they say they are, you will see multiple formations with multiple guys in multiple spots. I think they'll be better off if they do that, to be honest with you. I'd like to see that. Matt Seepersad. Matt, by the way, I think you're new to the program. I don't know for sure, but certainly you've been very vocal with the chats tonight, and I appreciate you for joining us. Matt says we have several viable pass rushers. Is Bowen going to be set in a full-time base with multiple sets, or is he going to have it fluid with no true base defense? Because in theory, we can run a 3-4 or a 4-3. Based off of just what I said moments ago, I do think it's going to be matchup-oriented. I don't think the Giants will have a typical base or a typical set of packages that you'll see week in and week out. I do think because of the talent that they've added to this team and the depth that they've added to this team, they've got the ability now to truly be more of a Swiss Army knife on defense. And Matt, I'm all for that. You know, I'm not a big believer in having both Thibodeau and Burns with their hands in the dirt, having 2 defensive linemen and then the 2 outside linebackers both playing down. Because now what you have is a 4-man defensive line, okay? But your 2 outside linebackers with their hand in the dirt, in my opinion, get eaten up, especially if the other team decides they're going to run the ball. It's to me, that is not the best way to utilize your players. I'd much rather use Kayvon and Brian Burns as either stand-up defensive ends or truly playing outside edge rusher / linebacker. You know, the old bear defense that Belichick used to employ when they would go 3-4 and there'd be 3 down linemen and then 2 stand-up linebackers, Banks and LT. So you'd have a 5-man front. but it was a 3-4 because the numbers refer to how many guys are down. Well, if you have 3 D linemen down and 2 stand-ups on the edges, that's still a 3-4, according to the nomenclature. But it's really a 5-man front. And I'm much in favor of that. I'm also much in favor of running 4 defensive linemen out on the field. Okay? If you want, put Golston out there, Robertson Harris, put out Alexander, and put out Dexter Lawrence. I'd be fine if you want to put 4 defensive linemen with their hand down in the dirt and then maybe sneak up one of the edge rushers. It could be Burns, could be Kayvon, could be Carter. Sneak up another guy standing up and still have a 5-man front, but using 4 down linemen. I'd be okay with that as a specific package that you could use in certain situations. You see, the Giants did not have enough defensive line talent nor defensive line depth in the last year, especially after they traded Leonard Williams 2 years ago. They did not have enough to line up consistently 3 defensive linemen with their hands in the dirt. The only guys they could consistently do that with were Dexter Lawrence and Nacho. Okay, once they traded away Leonard Williams, it became very difficult. And of course, what is his name? The former Ram. Oh, I'm losing my thought for just a second. I'm going to look it up. It was he was the big burly defensive tackle who gave the Giants. I'm going to look him up now, and I'm sorry I'm doing this, but I got to do it, folks, because I want to prove a point. Oh, where is he? The former defensive tackle who was there in 2023. Oh, it's making me nuts. He was big, he was burly, he was tough, and he certainly helped out against the run. It was Shaun Robinson. There you go. Shaun Robinson. Yeah. Quiet Riot does mention it now at the very bottom of the chat. Shaun Robinson. He was the only other guy, in my opinion, who could consistently be stout against the run, and you could throw him out there in a number of situations and feel good about him next to Dexter Lawrence. And there were times he could even fill in for Dexter if Dexter needed a couple of moments to get himself together and get a little bit of a breather on the sideline. That's the problem. No more Shaun Robinson, no more Leonard Williams. I'm sorry. There was not enough talent, in my opinion, on the defensive line to be able to employ more 3 down linemen or even try 4 down linemen. And that was the problem, in my opinion, with the rush defense. A lot of people got on defensive coordinator Shane Bowen for the Giants' trouble stopping the run last year. And I understand that, because I myself said, my goodness, so many times you're playing with 4 guys down, but Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns are 2 of the guys down on the edges. I did not like that formation against the run at all. But in Shane Bowen's defense, who did he have that he could consistently count on to put their hands in the dirt, be stout at the point of attack, and take on the blockers so that they could keep Bobby Okereke clean at the second level? The fact that they didn't have enough quality defensive linemen who could play down was not only a problem for the defensive line because they were shorthanded, but it became a problem for the linebackers too. Micah McFadden has trouble taking on some big, strong, physical guys who are going to block their way to the second level. Bobby Okereke is more of a space linebacker. He is a run and hit linebacker. When you have a defensive line that could not absorb and tie up the blocking of the other team's offensive line, those guys are able to then get to the second level and do what they want to do to your linebackers, i.e. Okereke and McFadden, and make their lives miserable as they try to navigate through those bodies to get to the ball. So the Giants' lack of defensive talent and depth, in my opinion, not only hurt the production of their two edge rushers, it hurt the production overall of the defensive line, and I believe it also significantly impacted the production more so of Bobby Okereke than it did Micah McFadden. That's why it was so critical to draft a Darius Alexander. That's why it was so critical to sign a Chauncey Golston and a Ray Robertson Harris and a Jeremiah Ledbetter. It was important to add beef and muscle to the defensive line so that the Giants could be a more physical front seven, be more stout. And that's not necessarily about the pass rush. That's more about speed and athleticism. It is power too, no question. But the Giants were not sturdy enough up front to be able to stop the run game. I believe they have addressed that this year. That's why I feel optimistic, like it will be better. You got to be stout up front. You have to be. You guys remember some of the terrific people who were stout up front for this team during some of their seasons past. Robert Harris, Fred Robbins, Keith Hamilton, Cornelius Griffin, Snacks Harrison. Do I really need to go on and on about these guys? Linval Joseph, Dalvin Tomlinson. Remember all these players? They were all really good. And they helped the Giants be sturdy and stout and strong up front, which then put people into passing situations. They're trying to recapture that by adding some of these big bodies to that defensive line. Matt, it's a long-winded answer, but I'm so glad you asked the question because it allowed me to get on my soapbox as I see the Giants have repaired one of the Achilles heels that really hampered this team last season. Kyler says, I think McFadden can emerge as linebacker one, making Bobby Okereke expendable since they weren't happy with him reportedly. That's incorrect. That's not the situation or the case at all. I just explained to you why his production went down. Things will change this season. Honestly, think Carter made more plays at middle linebacker than an edge, can cover and fly like a missile. I do think you will see some of Abdul Carter even as a spy. Might even see it some in week 1 against Jaden Daniels in Washington. We'll go a little bit longer here. We've already gone an hour and a half. I will go a tad longer because Shaun O'Hara was gracious enough to give us 25 minutes of his time. I was only expecting 15, but he gave us 25. And so I'll go a little bit longer here if somebody else wants to call in or do a video. But I also want to get to your chats. And I never really even got to the plays today, but I suppose that's kind of a secondary item when you consider you guys have questions and comments to deal with. Matt comes back and says, Who is our tallest wide receiver now that Ford Wheaton went down? Is there a chance they make the roster as a fifth wide receiver on the 53? Daquan Felton is an undrafted rookie free agent. So is Bo Collins. I don't know what they're officially listing them at on the roster, but I'd say both guys are between 6'3" and 6'4". If you're talking about a tall target, you're really talking about Thomas Fidone, the 7th-round draft choice at tight end, who is 6'7". You're talking about Theo Johnson, the starting tight end, who is 6'5". Okay? Those are some of the tallest targets in the passing game. Not necessarily all wide receivers. I just named 2 tight ends for you. Okay? But they are targets in the passing game, which is really what it comes down to. You need to have a mixture of different body types in your passing game between tight ends and receivers. I've always been of that philosophy for years, have always preached it, and thought that the Giants had too many medium to small wide receivers in their room. They've got some bigger targets now in the passing attack that they can look towards. M. Burnett says, thanks for addressing the question. No problem. Glad to do it. That's what we're here for. Matt says, DeVito has the most time in the system and more time in the system than most guys get in one system these days across the NFL. That is accurate. I would showcase DeVito, says Matt, all preseason, then trade him to one of those other bad teams for a ransom they gladly pay for potential. It's entirely possible that one of the 4 Giants quarterbacks gets traded. Either DeVito, I would think, or Winston. Now, there's also a chance, I don't think it's going to happen, that if all 3 atop the depth chart are healthy and DeVito gets waived, I don't see how he gets through waivers. But I'll say this, if Tommy DeVito does clear waivers, I would be flabbergasted if the Giants did not re-sign him to the practice squad. I am very confident that they would like Tommy DeVito to come back to the practice squad as quarterback 4. But it's going to take a unique set of circumstances for them to be in that spot. Or should I say even more unique circumstances for them to avoid that spot. 2 Giants Goofball says, what's up, everybody? Shaun O'Hara, legend in the house. Yes, he was, and we're very grateful. James O'Keefe says, would you play starting offensive line for more than 1 quarter in a game on Saturday? That would be against Buffalo. I don't know that I'd play them more than a quarter, James. I am certainly in favor, as you heard Shaun O'Hara say, he believes too as well. Offensive linemen need some work. I would like to see them play a quarter. Certainly at least 2 significant possessions, not 2 3-and-outs, okay? That's always something, too, that in years past, Parcells used to talk all the time about. It's not about how many possessions my guys play. When he talked about his veteran starters, he used to say it's about how many snaps they play. And if you've got to get them more snaps because they went 3-and-out and 3-and-out, well, then maybe they wind up playing the first possession of the second quarter because you've decided, okay, that starting offensive line, they're getting 15 snaps in this game. So 3-and-out and 3-and-out doesn't get there. So we'll go a third possession if we have to, but that'll be the max. We won't go more than 3 possessions or 15 snaps, whatever comes first. That's the way Parcells used to play it. Sean Sullivan says, wish they would, but I doubt any starters play Saturday. And if you're James O'Keefe from PJ and OKM, thank you for everything. Okay. Why not? Thank you. I'll send a thank you to James too. How about that, Sean? I honestly, at this point, I really don't know what Brian Daboll's going to do. He says he's aware the preseason snaps are valuable, but there's also the injury risk, and he has to weigh it. I believe he's going to do it on an individual case basis with all of the guys. I would not think Malik Neighbors is going to play, okay? I don't think Darius Slayton is going to play. And we might not even see Wan'Dale Robinson on Saturday. Do I think you'll see Jalen Hyatt? Yes, I do. And I believe you're going to see all of the other receivers who have been here during the offseason program, because that's one dynamite competition. I don't think you'll see Theo Johnson or Daniel Bellinger. But you might see Manhurts. I absolutely think you'll see Greg Dulcich. I definitely think you'll see Thomas Fedoni. And I definitely think you're going to see Terry, the other tight end, who has caught every ball thrown to him during training camp. Because there's another huge battle going on the depth chart at the tight end position. I don't think you're going to see Tracy. I don't think you're going to see Scatterboo. You may not even see Singletary for more than a few snaps, if at all. But I could definitely see you're going to get a lot of Turbo Miller, and you're going to get a lot of Ward, the new fella who they just signed. I'm sure Ward's probably going to see the whole second half, to be honest. Those are some of the gut feels that I have on some of the positions, if you will. Matt comes back and says, I listen to BBKL every day, never called. Happened to see you go live tonight and joined in. We'll see. So I was right. Matt is a new audience member to the Big Blue Breakdown Live. Matt, it is the nighttime version of the show. It's unofficial. I am part of the Giants broadcast team, but this program is part of the New York Giants on SI Media Network. It is not part of Giants.com. I do this program independently. It's basically a nighttime version of BBKL, if you will. People at Sports Illustrated asked me about doing it. I told them we'll do it, but I'm not doing it every night. I'm not doing it every weekday. You know, we try to be here once a week on Wednesday nights live. And then we also give you, for those of you who are not familiar with the program, the day before a game, I'll try to give you a 15 or 20-minute taped program that gives you an idea of who the Giants are going to play, little opponents preview, the news of the week, and what you should be looking for during the course of the game. Then the day after the game, you'll get my game balls and gassers for offense, for defense, and special teams. Guys who should get game balls for how well they did, and guys who should have to run gassers because they didn't perform up to expectations. So that's what you can expect, Matt, from the Big Blue Breakdown here on the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel. I'm responsible for it. It's me, one and only me, and occasionally we'll bring on guests like we did. We've had Howard Cross on recently. We've had Matt Sims. We've had Shaun O'Hara. We've had Jonathan Casillas. You know, we'll work guys in on occasion. All right, let's quickly get through the rest of these chats, and then I think we're going to pack it up for the night. YouTube handle 1979. Do you think there's any level of play Russell Wilson could achieve that the Giants bring him back for a second year and Dart has a second redshirt year? I think it is very unlikely. Could it happen? Is it possible? I suppose it's possible. But here's why I think it's unlikely. If Russell Wilson has a really good year and leads the Giants into the playoffs, he's on a one-year contract. It is an inexpensive contract by starting quarterback standards. So if Wilson plays extremely well, in all likelihood, he's going to want a very hefty raise. That would be counterproductive to the Giants at this point, a point of their development, and at this stage of where their salary cap will be next year as they try to continue building this roster. Now, if Russell Wilson does well and leads the Giants into the playoffs and says, look, I'm not interested in going anywhere else. I've already been on my fourth team. We've gone from Seattle to Denver to Pittsburgh to the Giants. I'd like to maybe sign another year deal and finish out my career here. And comes in with a very cap-friendly deal. I suppose there's a possibility they'd bring him back and say, listen, you know what? If we like what Jackson Dart's done in the background as a red shirt, they could, in theory, say, okay, Russell, you've earned a chance to come back. They make good on the money, but he comes back and is the potential placeholder until Dart might come in at some point during the season and seize the job. I would think if Dart progresses as well as they would like him to in his redshirt year, the anticipation is that he would be ready, if not at the beginning of the second season, to try to put him in a game. Certainly at some point early or middle of the second season, if his sauce is bubbling on the stove, they're going to want him to cook. So, that's another thing. Is Wilson going to be in a peace of mind that he would be okay with that? That if he does get a raise and does come back for another year, is he going to be of peace of mind to know that if the rookie's ready and they want to put him in, he's got to be willing to take a seat and be a mentor from the bench? I don't know how he would feel about that. Chances are he probably would not be too thrilled. So I think it's going to be a very unique and long shot situation for Russell Wilson to come back for a second year with the Giants. But I don't want to project that far ahead. I simply say, from a logical perspective, it would require a unique set of circumstances on all parties for that to happen. Because remember, the Giants also signed Jameis Winston to a 2-year deal, which was kind of an insurance policy, not just for this year, but also potentially for next year. He's on a very inexpensive deal to be the veteran insurance should Dart not be ready to play at the beginning of 2026. And, if you're the Giants, you got to think about that too. And if you're Russell Wilson, you got to think about that. So you see, chances are probably very slim, that Wilson would be back for a second season with the Giants. But never say never, never rule it out. Arnold Stevenson, in parentheses, Freedom, says, good evening, Paul. I'm looking forward to seeing the G-Men on Hard Knocks on Tuesday. It would be great to come out of Buffalo with a win. The reason he says that is because the Buffalo Bills are training camp Hard Knocks, which means somehow, some way, the Giants will wind up making cameos due to Saturday's preseason opener in the Bills version of Hard Knocks next week. Thank you for bringing that point up, Arnold. C-Mac, the cable guy, says, to play that formation, we have to be sure they're going to run the ball on that play, or who will carry the tight end if they decide to pass the ball. Yeah, again, understood. C-Mac, that's why we talk about different packages. We talk about versatility. We talk about the sub-package. We talk about matchups. No doubt. I mean, I could describe for you a slew of different personnel combinations and formations and responsibilities based on what it is, the game situation, the injury situation, the personnel situation, the score situation, the time situation, the field position situation, the game flow situation. C-Mac, there are a gazillion possibilities. But the point I'm making is that the Giants have increased the talent, the bulk, the strength, and the depth of their down defensive linemen. By doing that, they now have more legitimate options to turn to. That's the point that needs to be made more than anything else when discussing the Giants' front seven. And yes, James O'Keefe, I'm sorry. As I was ripping through a bunch of terrific, stout defensive linemen, I suppose I overlooked Cornelius Griffin. Absolutely. By the way, Christian Peter, another one, played on the NFC Championship team that went to the Super Bowl in 2000 and got beat by the Baltimore Ravens in Super Bowl 35. Christian Peter logged a lot of snaps at defensive tackle for that team. He had a back injury that kept flaring up and messing him up, and that's why the Giants did not re-sign him. And I believe he went to the Chicago Bears for a year or two, if I'm not mistaken, before he was forced to retire. Sean Jackson says, good evening, Paul. My son and I were at Giants training camp this past Saturday. I was near the reporter's gate, got a good view of you, Paul, but you were moving too quick for me to get your attention. Sean, I'm sorry. I do apologize. I do move rather rapidly. I'm very focused, and I do have a very intentional gait when I'm walking around the practice field. I've always got something turning in my head, and I do apologize if I didn't hear you or see you. But thank you for at least attempting. Oh, and it looks like, by the way, he says he will be back with his family on August 13th, the day after his 50th birthday. Happy birthday in advance. The Giants will practice against the Jets that day. You're right. He says he's never been to a joint practice. How competitive can you expect it? Very competitive. I don't think there'll be any rough sandpaper around the edges kind of stuff that we saw with the Lions last year, because the Lions seemed very intent on causing some flare-ups. I don't think you'll see that between the Giants and the Jets. But remember, on the 12th, the Giants will go to Florham Park and practice with the Jets there. A lot of what happens there may determine what happens the next day when the Jets come up to East Rutherford and practice at the Meadowlands. Sean, I hope you are able to flag me down during that practice, and at least we could say hello. Thank you so much, though, for attempting to, and thank you so much for sticking with our program tonight. C-Mac the Cable Guy says they're not trading Winston. He has a 2-year deal. Winston has a 1-year deal. I understand that, C-Mac. Again, that's why I'm trying to explain. Never say never. But logically speaking, when you look at the puzzle pieces, it's a real long shot for Russell Wilson to be a Giant in 2026. Is it possible? Yes. Is it likely or probable? No. Sean Sullivan says, long-time listener to BBKL. Sam Beal thoughts. Yeah. Sam Beal had talent. He had a skill set. He had some size. He had some length. He had some ability. But he was hurt coming out of school. Got hurt when he came to the Giants. And he just could not overcome that stuff, either physically or psychologically enough to become a useful player in the Giants' cornerback room. There are many reasons why a player who has the requisite skills to play in the league winds up flaming out. Injuries are one such reason, but not the only reason. Beal did have injuries, and again, I do think psychologically it really impacted him, and then he became someone that just wasn't going to be able to make it. Sean Sullivan says, better question, would you let Wilkins give you a forehead kiss before every game if he comes here and stops the run? Christian Wilkins, yeah. I suspect he would rather do that with his teammates because they're the people who are going to help him in the formation do what he needs to do. Sean Jackson says, it was great seeing Akeem Nicks and Bob Bradshaw, Mario Manningham in the building last Saturday's training camp. Akeem, one of my personal favorites, all-time Giants wide receivers. As a matter of fact, I did a taped MSG interview that will air on MSG, I believe, a week from this weekend. A week from Saturday, I think it's going to air as part of the All Access Blues show. I think that's when it's going to air. I did a stand-up interview with Akeem Nicks, and it was a lot of fun. And then finally, James O'Keefe says, I'm going to both Jets and Giants practices, expecting a lot of heated competition. I think we all are. Folks, I've actually gone way over what I expected. Thought we would do an hour. Shaun came in, gave me more time. Thought I would do an hour and a half. Then thought, okay, maybe we'll go 145. Well, as I look at the clock, and we have well over 1,000 live views tonight, and thank you to every one of you who have decided to join the program, we already are at 1 hour and 50 minutes. You know what I'm going to do? Just because you guys are here and you're continuing to log up the viewer count, I'll go up to the top of the hour. I've got 9 more minutes to go, and we have an opportunity to actually talk about some of the plays that happened at practice today, which may be of some interest to you, since today there were only limited people at practice, advertisers, VIPs, family members, and stuff like that. It was not an open practice to the general public. The play of the day was Jameis Winston. The Giants were in full pads today, and Jameis Winston threw a 55-yard bomb flat-footed. It was a deep post route to Daquan Felton, who caught the ball downfield for a touchdown. It was the most spectacular, highlighted play of the day. And quite honestly, I thought Jameis Winston in particular threw the ball extremely well today, threw several touchdown passes. And that one was definitely the highlighted play of the afternoon. Other really good plays on offense, although it was a better defensive practice than it was an offensive one. I'll give you some of the other offensive highlights. Russell Wilson early in 11-on-11s, throwing a rope to Theo Johnson on a crossing route. Tay Banks was all over Johnson, on him like ketchup on a hamburger or mustard on a hot dog if you prefer. And gorgeous throw, extending Theo Johnson with his arms so that he could reach out and make a fingertip grab on the tightrope, and Banks simply did not have enough length to be able to knock the ball down. Sweet pass by Russell Wilson for sure. Wilson also hitting Neighbors a number of times today, as they always hook up. It seems like every single practice, Malik Neighbors makes at least one really nice catch or one unbelievable move that creates separation, despite the fact that this secondary has been like glue all over these targets throughout the course of the summer. Okay, a bit later on, another offensive play was Jackson Dart hitting Zach Pascal, a former Cardinal veteran target who is in camp right now. He high-pointed the ball using his size after Dart had a ball to Pascal, ruled out of bounds on the catch. He went right back to Pascal. Pascal high-pointed it, made a nice grab. So that was a pretty sweet play. Next highlighted play that I found in 11-on-11s was Russell Wilson, long downfield on a deep post to Jalen Hyatt. Incomplete. Why? Because Tay Banks and Tyler Nubin were double covering Hyatt. And they made a perfect play to close at exactly the right time and knock the ball away. Sweet play by the corner and the safety to prevent that completion. Okay, later on, we now see in the next session of 11-on-11s, two outstanding defensive plays. We had Russell Wilson trying to throw to the left sideline There were two Giants receivers in the vicinity. Wan'Dale Robinson was one. Pascal was another. But Tay Banks did a terrific job on the sideline and picked the ball off. Read it, made a really nice play, closed, timed it perfectly. Sweet interception for Tay Banks. The entire defense erupted, as they are wont to do whenever they get a takeaway. Banks just continues to have a terrific training camp. Next star highlighted play. This one was also incredibly impressive. Nick Jones, who was trying to win a job as the backup slot corner, he closed and wrestled the ball away from Montrell Washington, diminutive slot receiver. It was a throw to the right sideline by Jackson Dart. Put in a good place to the outside where only Washington should have been able to get it. But Washington was not big enough and physical enough to shield the defender. So Jones then came in and literally wrestled the ball out of Washington's hands for a spectacular interception. Next highlighted play was Jameis Winston to Jordan Bly down the left seam, making a diving catch. Then let's see, what do we have after that one? The next highlighted play that I marked down was Jameis Winston hitting Olszewski. You guys know Olszewski just came back to this team last week. Well, guess what? Made a diving touchdown grab in the end zone. Winston to Olszewski. That was a sweet play. And then later on, let's see, I've got one more terrific highlighted play. And that would have been Winston to Olszewski again. This time Olszewski, the receiver, was able to shake, I believe it was Washington, free. D. Williams. I'm sorry. It was D. Williams. Shook him free inside the back line. And Winston found him in the back of the end zone for a touchdown. And that was the last snap of the practice session today. So that's what happened at Giants practice today. Tomorrow, it is a carded practice, which means they will not work on red zone or 2-minute drill or length of the field drill where they're going full team 11 on 11. That's not what they're going to do. They put plays on cards. They go out to the line of scrimmage and they show everybody, hey, this is the play we're working on. Defense, this is what you're going to do. Offense, this is what you're going to do. Everybody pretty much knows it's basically a drill. It's a drill to run a play after a play after a play, as opposed to, hey, 2-minute drive, you need a field goal, ball's on the 35, let's play it. And they play it like a game. Not what's going on tomorrow. Carded practice tomorrow, followed by a walkthrough early Friday morning. Then the team gets on a plane, goes to Buffalo, and plays the game Saturday, 1 o'clock at Buffalo. Giants and Bills as we begin the preseason. Once again, folks, if you haven't checked out the information, locally in New York, the game is on Channel 4. Nationally around the country, it's going to be live on NFL Network. It'll be the Bills home TV crew on the national feed, on the radio, on WFAN 101.9. I'll have the call with Shaun O'Hara in the booth. Madeline Burke will be downstairs on the sideline. Channel 4's feed will be Bob Papa with Carl Banks. And of course, downstairs, we'll have Howard Cross and Bruce Beck. Folks, enjoy it. Oh, well, one final comment on the chat before we say goodnight. Mark B., one of our regulars, surprised no fights in training camp yet. Well, James Hudson has been rather vocal, and there's been some yapping between him and some of the defense. No fights, but there's been some yapping. Kayvon Illuminor Burns mixed it up a little in OTAs. Joint's practices with the Jets should be heated. There were 3 fights last season with the Lions joint. Yes, I'm well aware of that. I was there. I hope we don't have any fights this time around because camp fights lead to injuries. The Giants don't need any of those. We'll be back with the Big Blue Breakdown live again next Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time to take your chats, your audio calls, and your video calls. Until then, I'm Paul Dottino. Enjoy the Giants and Bills on Saturday in the preseason opener, and we will talk to you next time. So long, everybody.